offseason has had a lot of twists and turns so far, but not really centered around the Boston Celtics. Why? They just won the NBA Finals 2 weeks ago. They don't really need to be the team that needs to make a lot of changes here. But if you want to compete with the Boston Celtics, then yeah, you might have to shake some things up. That's exactly what the New York Knicks and Philadelphia 76ers are doing. And I'm your host, Allie Barefoot of Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I want to break down what the Knicks changes and 76ers changes mean for the Boston Celtics this upcoming regular season, because obviously the number one priority here is to run it back, to win Banner 19. And it looks like Brad Stevens may be limited to what he can do with his roster, but does he need to change too much? We're going to break that down here coming up in just a few moments. First things first, hit that sub button for me. Celtics Today is going live once a week in the offseason. We want you guys to be a part of it. We're going to go live for extensions. We're going to go live for trades. We're going to go live just once a week to shoot the shit and talk Boston Celtics basketball with you. Go on ahead, hit that sub button for me if you guys do want to join 38,000 loyal subscribers and jump in on the latest action surrounding the NBA, surrounding your Boston Celtics. All right, let's talk about the New York Knicks, because after they got knocked out in Game 7 of Round 2 in the NBA playoffs, obviously the front office is like, that can't happen again. And they've got the resources to be a very good basketball team. I thought if the Knicks and Celtics ended up playing each other in the Eastern Conference Finals, it was going to be a bloodbath. I thought it was going to go to possibly 7 games with the players they had on last year's roster. But now they're making a couple of different moves that could change the outcome this year. Here's what the New York Knicks have done so far in the offseason. They re-signed OG Anunoby. They traded for Mikal Bridges, but they did lose Isaiah Hartenstein, their center, to the Oklahoma City Thunder, which now leaves Mitchell Robinson as their lone center as of right now, pending any free agency pickups, pending any trades. But I think the real big storyline here, Schmidt, is adding Bridges to their backcourt.
I mean, yeah, no doubt about it. And Bridges is also one of the most cost-efficient players in the NBA. He makes a little bit more than $20 million a year. And for the production that he gives you, not only on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, he's one of the longest and switchable wing defenders in the NBA. And to pair him up with OG Anunoby, you have two defenders who probably have the best chance at limiting a Jayson Tatum and a Jalen Brown out of any team in the NBA. So defensively, on the wing, the Knicks have a really good foundation in place to compete with the Boston Celtics. Now, am I going to say that the Celtics now have a clear front court advantage down low as the Knicks lost Isaiah Hartenstein? Probably not. I mean, you have Al Horford there and Kristaps Porzingis, but Porzingis is a real matchup nightmare for this Knicks team, but you also have to put into question his health. But the Knicks lose Isaiah Hartenstein, only have Mitchell Robinson, who has health concerns of his own. Could the Knicks be in the market to package Robinson and Deuce McBride and maybe a first-round pick to go get a better starting center? That could be in the cards, but for right now, they kind of have a hole down there at the center position with just Mitchell Robinson and a very shallow crop of free agent centers that are still available out there.
Let's take a look at the possible starting 5 here for the New York Knicks coming up in this regular season right now. Like Smitty said, there could still be some pending trades or free agent signings that could lead the New York Knicks starting 5 to look a little bit different. But Julius Randle sat out for a big portion of the season along with Mitchell Robinson because of injuries. But OG Anunoby was a pickup by the NBA trade deadline, and that was a phenomenal pickup. I did not think Anunoby was coming back, but then the Bridges trade happened, and what do you know, 24 hours later, Anunoby does re-sign with the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson obviously leading all ways here for the Knicks in the backcourt, in the scoring and facilitating in primarily the on-ball movement. Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson as your front court, it's not my favorite. I don't really like Julius Randle as a New York Knick. I don't think he fits in there very well, and especially with what he did because of an injury, I think the Knicks really stepped up without Julius Randle. And Mitchell Robinson being your starting center, doesn't push the needle for me. But we're going to break down the trade here that did send Bridges to the New York Knicks. They did get rid of Bojan Bogdanovic, who was another NBA trade deadline pickup. He didn't do much for the Knicks because he got injured towards the end of the season as well. They gave 4 unprotected and 2025 protected first-round picks, which the Nets horribly needed.
Yeah. I mean, the Knicks gave up a ton to get Mikal Bridges.
And we knew, and the Nets have said this all offseason. They have said we are adamantly not trading Bridges. And then, of course, a couple of reports came out saying Bridges did want to go to the New York Knicks. And we knew the Nets, when they were kind of in trade conversation, that they were looking for protected picks and draft picks in the future because of the James Harden trade they made several years ago. They ended up doing nothing. They got rid of all their draft picks for that. So overall, you lose a really big player here for Bridges. I love how Cam Thomas has set up for the Nets. So I do think that Bridges coming to the Knicks, the Nets can still be viable here. But overall, I'm thinking of the Knicks versus Celtics. And I think Bridges makes them elite. I do. That scared the shit out of me when I saw this trade. But losing Hartenstein is a big loss for the New York Knicks. Why? Their front court does not bother me. Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle does not bother me going up against Jalen Brown, Jayson Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, now Horford on the wings and in the paint. Plus, when you got two guards that act like bigs and Derrick White and Drew Holiday, who like to hang out down low around the rim, they're fantastic rim protectors. Derrick White blocks as if he is 7'3". Their front court does not bother me, including play-wise, skill-wise, and also injury-wise. I think Mitchell Robinson could probably get injured in this next year with how his injury report has gone. Same with Julius Randle. I know that Julius and New York Knicks fans aren't really happy with each other either. So yes, Mikal Bridges does make the New York Knicks a little bit better, but they're still kind of small in my opinion. You got a lot of shifty guards, you got a lot of shifty forwards, and you got some good ball handlers, as well as some great on-ball defenders. But you got to be big. And I don't know if Robinson and Julius Randle scare me. That's just me, though. If you guys disagree with me, let me know down below. Are you worried about the Nova Knicks? In case you guys did not know, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, and now Mikal Bridges all play for the Villanova Wildcats, and now they all play for the New York Knicks. They're all best friends. Type Y for yes, type in for no. Let's talk about the 76ers now, because they're trying to be contenders. And you know what? Quite frankly, they're just trying to make it past the first and second round of the NBA playoffs. I understand that the 76ers haven't been a threat to the Celtics in a while because they kind of shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to the second round of the NBA playoffs, but they are constantly making moves that you can't ignore here. And here's what the 76ers have done so far in free agency and the offseason. They extended Tyrese Maxey 4 years, $206 million, I believe. They re-signed Kelly Oubre last night around midnight, which I did not know if Oubre was going to be another player that would come back to the 76ers. But then the big kicker here was that they signed Paul George. Not only that, they seem to be the only people trying to get Paul George. They could be the only people that could afford PG. Yeah. But Smith, Paul George immediately takes the 76ers from here to here.
Absolutely. I mean, he makes them a better team, no doubt. I think he fits in really well. They needed another off the bounce scorer in their starting lineup. Obviously, you have Maxey. Embiid can get his own in the ISO too. His face-up game is elite, and his back-to-the-basket game as well. But you needed that off the bounce scorer on the wing. You couldn't be bogged down by Tobias Harris anymore, just having him sit in the corner and
he's in Detroit now,
doing whatever he does on offense, which is not much. And you re-sign Oubre, who's a good piece for them. He can potentially come off the bench now, or he'll start. Maybe put Paul George at the 4. That kind of makes them a smaller team. But you have this core in place now in Philadelphia. You got to hope it works. You tried a big 3 with James Harden. You tried this with Ben Simmons, and it didn't work. But now you have a viable two-way player on the wing in Paul George, who is a perennial all-star, still playing at a very, very high level, and a little bit of pressure is taken off of him right now to even potentially be the third option on this team. I mean, think about the leap that Tyrese Maxey took last year, being an all-star level player and just being one of the NBA's elite guards now. He's making $50 million or $40 million a year now on a 5-year extension. I'm definitely worried about the 76ers and the ceiling that they can reach, but you have to take into account their health issues. I mean, Embiid's not available all the time. He plays through injury in the playoffs, and then the 76ers fans cry about it.
I'll tell you
Paul
what,
George has injury concerns. He's dealt with an elbow, he's dealt with a knee, he's dealt with a hamstring.
Yeah.
Everywhere on Paul George's body is not 100%, but you know, at the end of the day, the ceiling on this team is very high, and they are definitely an Eastern Conference Finals contender to match up with Boston down the line in the postseason.
I've seen this story before, though. They do this where they try to take an NBA superstar and pair him with an MVP player like Joel Embiid, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
It has not worked. I don't see this working with Paul George. I don't see it being any different than James Harden with Joel Embiid. I think you're taking a superstar who also has injury issues himself,
no doubt.
Not to the extent of Joel Embiid, but he's got bad knees. He's got a bad body. It's happened before. And you know what's even more confusing to me is that it didn't work with Kawhi Leonard. And the Clippers, I know, put out a statement saying they got us where we not exactly where we wanted to be, but it was a good 5 years with the Clippers and Paul George. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George did nothing. They did nothing in their time together, which is why I'm thinking now you're going to put Paul George next to Joel Embiid, and I don't think they're going to do what everybody thinks they're going to do. I think this is a team that looks good on paper. If they prove me wrong, then so be it. We'll go about it that way. But I'm definitely a little bit more afraid of the New York Knicks than I am the 76ers just because I have seen this play out before. And now they're paying a hefty salary for Paul George to come alongside a Tyrese Maxey just got extended, an MVP candidate, and Joel Embiid, and anybody else they want to make roster moves here moving into the regular season, because here's what their possible starting five may look like, and you're going to have to take this a little bit of grain of salt. Why? Batum declined to come back to the 76ers. That does not mean he cannot be re-signed. He could still play with the 76ers in this upcoming year. Oubre just re-signed with the Sixers. Embiid, obviously MVP. Maxey was extended. And then you got Paul George. Well, their secondary here, their depth chart, it's not as intimidating as the New York Knicks with Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo coming off the bench, and certainly not as intimidating as the Boston Celtics with Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and whoever else they do want to end up re-signing or pairing with in free agency and with trades. So overall, they are contenders if healthy. If healthy is the key word here. I could play that same card with the Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis being healthy, even though we have proven we can without him, and I could play that card with the New York Knicks here. But PG and Embiid have not had the best track record with injuries, and to be honest, I think the 76ers remain the same to me. With Paul George, I think they get better, but I think they remain the same because you're going to run into storylines of possibly a Paul George injury or a Joel Embiid injury. I think with Paul George, it didn't work with Kawhi Leonard. I don't see it working with Joel Embiid. This may be just a little bit on my shoulder here because I just watched this story 2 years ago with James Harden and Joel Embiid. They're not the same player here, but I think Paul George makes his team a lot better. But overall, I don't think it increases my threat to the Boston Celtics as they did in the last couple of years. But I could be wrong. Once again, that's just how I'm seeing it. I could be completely out of my mind right now. Please let me know what you guys think down below. Pick one to play. Would you rather play the Philadelphia 76ers or the New York Knicks? Type NYK, type 76ers, 76ers in the comment section below, and you guys know what to do. And my question now goes back to the Boston Celtics. Does Brad Stevens need to add anything? Because I think that Brad Stevens is a phenomenal GM. He's doing things that, no franchise is doing in the NBA right now, in my opinion. But with the Boston Celtics not having really any money to do anything other than signing a vet minimum or doing a trade, which they can only trade one player at a time, I would be remorse to say that I would think the Boston Celtics would want to do something to make their roster slightly different, just to throw something different at contenders. Like the Knicks have already played the Boston Celtics 5 times last year. Now you want to throw the exact same roster at them while their roster looks 10 times different. Same thing with the 76ers. So it will be intriguing to see what Brad Stevens can do and will do in this offseason. But I will be honest, I would not mind signing a big or a wing at the vet minimum. I think that just at least adding one different body could make a little bit of a difference here, even though I think the Boston Celtics are blessed to have their returning 8, returning 10 coming back next year, all the way from Neemias Queta to Jayson Tatum. And I do respect Brad Stevens a lot for bringing back all the players that contributed to make the Boston Celtics win an NBA championship, and I have faith the Celtics can do it once more with the same guys on the team, but I'd be lying if I said I'm content with staying with the exact same roster. Brad Stevens still has a lot of time to make a different move, and I would not be surprised if he did make a move that I never saw coming. But with that being said, I would like to add at least one more different player to add to the roster to take on the Knicks and take on the 76ers in the Eastern Conference this year. And as always, if the Celtics do make a roster move, go on ahead, hit that sub button for me down below, and we got you covered on anything and everything for your Boston Celtics as they go on ahead and try to win back-to-back here, banner 18 to banner 19 next year, baby. Let's go on ahead and do so. All you guys got to do is hit that sub button for me.